Thomas, and I'm curriculum coordinator, one of the curriculum coordinators with Northwest Allen County Schools. We work with curriculum instruction and technology integration. So what I want to share with you today is looking at checks for understanding with our students when we're looking at that in a remote sort of setting. So I found this quote from Aristotle: knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. And I started thinking about that a little bit, and I started wondering, how can we look at that with our students? So if you're like me, I feed a lot off of the crowd that I'm in. So as I'm interacting with students, as I'm presenting a workshop, as I'm talking to teachers, I am actively looking at them and looking at their body language and trying to read their facial expressions and trying to understand, are they connecting with the content? Are they connecting with what I'm saying? Are they getting it? Do they understand where we are, what we're doing? Do they know what they need to know? And in this digital, virtual, remote sort of teaching environment, that is really, really hard to do. So if we flip this quote a little bit from knowing yourself to knowing our students is the beginning of all wisdom, it helps me kind of look at, how can we know where they are? How can we know where they are instructionally? How can we know where they are emotionally? How can we understand them? And once we understand their learning, how can we make adjustments to go forward? Okay, so we're going to look at some tools that will allow us to do that. Our school system is a Canvas school system. So one of the first things we're going to look at is Canvas. And then I also want to take a quick look at Flipgrid, and I want to take a look at quizzes that I use sometimes to work with staff and work with different kinds of training, because I want to show you two things within Canvas that I think can give you an understanding of what students know. So one obviously is quizzes. A quiz you can give to students. It can be short. It can be a one-question quiz. It can be various formats, but you can give a quiz to your students and that will show you what they know. But one of the cool things too is you want to be able to see what maybe the class knows. So if you're seeing a trend across your quiz of the understanding, then you need to maybe that will help you understand where do you have to reteach a little bit, where are your kids falling apart, and as you instructed that part, as you taught that section, what kinds of things need reinforced. So quizzes is pretty much a straightforward quiz sort of application that you can do that with. But I also think a really good place that you can get some understanding of what your students know, especially if your students are able to write sentences and ideas. So maybe not your primary kiddos, but maybe your second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth up grades can really benefit from discussions. So one of the things that you can do within Canvas is you can create a discussion for your students to take part in that they will then give you either in a typed format or in a video format a summary of what they learned. They can give you, you can ask them to give you the three main ideas of what they learned. You can ask for questions. Where are they falling apart? Okay, what part of the steps, at what point in these steps do you not get it? And they can explain that to you. So discussions are good for lots of different ways to check for understanding. The key with a discussion question is going to be your question. What kind of question did you come up with that's going to be able to allow you, based on how students respond to it, to see where their learning is falling short. Okay, so that's one of the things that you'll want to make sure that we have going on there. So with discussions, I want to show you a couple different settings inside of there. So you'll pick your discussion, you'll name it. You'll give some typewritten instructions here. If you want, you can record a video too of yourself explaining things to students so that they understand. You're going to choose who to give it to. So you can give it to all of your students. You can give it to students based on where they are in the learning. So you can give a different question for some of your high-flying students than you give to maybe some of your lower-end students who are struggling a little bit more. Okay, so you can customize who you assign that to. You can allow for threaded replies, which means that students can respond to each other. And you can, if you do that though, I would recommend you always use the users must post before seen replies, because this makes it that students have to give an answer before they respond to other people's answers. Okay, you can grade it if you want. You can allow liking. You need to understand your students for this one. If your students can handle this pretty well, you can allow liking. With my 6th grade students, it became more about the social and liking than it did about the discussion. So I didn't do that. And then you can add this to your students to do, so that in their little on over here on the side on their dashboard, it'll show a to do and it'll show that for them. Okay, so there's some things there. The nice thing to me about the discussions again is students are coming up with responses. So they're coming up with their answers, they're coming up with their ideas, they're coming up with where they're falling short, and based on their responses, it can help you understand their learning. Okay, so that is Canvas. So Canvas quizzes. So you have all of the varieties of questions that you can ask in a Canvas quiz. You have Canvas discussions, which allows you to have the students have to create a response from their understanding, so you can understand where they're not understanding. That is very similar to Canvas discussions, but that is a little bit more visually appealing, I guess, and is video based, is Flipgrid. Flipgrid is nice because it allows you to allow the students to show you what they know. So if you're in a performance-based subject area, you could have them be able to record a submission. They could sing, they could dance, they could play an instrument, they could perform a task. You could have them work through a math problem and have them record them working through it to show you. You could have them do a science experiment and have them work through it as they go through it. You could have them talk to you about the connection between a character and why that character is really integral to the development of that story, and they can explain that to you. So you can listen to them, you can read a little bit of their body language, you can see that. So Flipgrid is composed with grids. So a grid is a classroom. So in this account, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 classrooms, and then inside of classrooms are assignments. So if I click on this classroom, and then a topic is an assignment. So I'm going to click on this topic, and there's a view. I want to go back a second to the different view here for a minute. Maybe. If I click on this, view as student, then what the student will see is once that student logs in with his or her Google account, so I'm going to see this as a student. So there is a response that I made earlier that the student can see. But when the student is ready to record his or her response, she or he will click on the green plus button. It will come up here loading. This shows you that they have 15 seconds to be able to record a response on. So they have 15 seconds to do that. They record their response and then they submit it, and then you can assess it for their understanding. So as I said, Flipgrid isn't a ton different from Canvas discussions where you can record a recording. Flipgrid is different in the sense that they can't type, well, they can type a title, but they're not typing in there. That's actual them talking to a recorder to you. You can set the time limit for their submissions from 15 seconds up to 10 minutes. So you can have some control in how long they're talking to you. And that's kind of nice sometimes, because sometimes kids get going and they go and they go and they go and they go and they go. And then it's not always useful information. So that's Flipgrid. So Flipgrid is they can respond to a prompt. They can demonstrate to you a task that they're doing. They can show you what is going on. Okay, the next one that we're going to look at is called Quizizz.com, Quizizz.com. And one of the things that I like about this is that it offers the opportunity to have a live in-class session where the students compete against each other, so to speak, as they're taking the questions. So this can offer an environment of fun as they're learning. There's a program, there's an application called Kahoot. Probably a lot of you are familiar with Kahoot. Kahoot is a similar kind of thing. Kahoot gets rewarded for fast. Quizizz gets rewarded for right and fast, okay? So if you're going to do the live part of it, you're still having the competition aspect, but the students are going to be rewarded for getting the answer correct more than they're going to get rewarded for being the first one to answer, okay? And if we need to think about it a little bit, some of our students who are slower at processing information, that doesn't necessarily mean they don't know the information. Maybe it just means they're a slower reader. Maybe it means that they need to take some time to think through the question. And so sometimes these sort of live interactive Kahoot or quizzes or that kind of thing, it becomes discouraging for those kids. So the object of this is to learn and to review and to see what they know. But for some segments of our student population, these kinds of things don't do that. These kinds of activities frustrate, maybe embarrass, defeat students. So we want to look at things too that will reward them or think them through how to get the right answer, okay, because the goal is the learning. So you can do a live format with this. You can do an assigned quiz with this too. I use that a lot for students to work through the quiz on their own as an assignment. And then one of the things that you'll see is some information. So they have a reports tab, and then you can look at information of what they got. So this one had a low accuracy. 84 students took it, and the accuracy was 65%. So I can look and I can start to click on some of this to get an idea of where they're falling apart, who's not doing it very well. One of the things that you will need to do is train them on how to respond and how to type in their name. So whatever works for you, but you just need to make sure that you know who they are and that you know, that they understand the expectations, because there is the capability of putting in the different names.